The Dauntless hung in the dark. Red light from a distant star spilled across the bridge. Maia Venn stood at the center and watched the glow paint her hands. A fusion core pulsed at the ship's heart. Its hum traveled through every panel and strut. Deck plates transmitted that vibration upward. Maia felt it in her boots, a constant reminder of the power beneath her. The gas giant locus filled the forward viewport. Rust and cream swirled together. Rings caught the starlight like a frozen halo. No alien ship in sight. Tess Harlow bent over her console. Her fingers danced across the interface. She hummed a fragment of something old and half-remembered. "Coordinates confirmed," she said. "This is the exact point. 43 years of travel. We landed within 12 kilometers of the target." Maia pressed her thumb against her lower lip. The message had been simple. A star map, a set of instructions, a promise of contact at this place. She had read it 1,000 times during the voyage. She had memorized the tonal markers in the Galsign primer. Her tongue ached from shaping the clicks and vowels. Darian Wren stood near the rear of the bridge. His arms were crossed. His left hand trembled against his bicep, the old decompression injury. He watched the viewport the way a man watches a dark doorway. 12 hours they waited. Maia reviewed the greeting protocols for the 42nd time. First, show open hands. Second, wait for the alien to initiate physical distance. Third, speak in Galsign at a measured pace. Fourth, do not smile. The primer warned that human tooth exposure could be a threat display among certain species. She had practiced the sequence in her cabin until it felt like muscle memory. Bex Corda stood by the engineering station. Her arms were crossed. A mug of coffee sat cold and forgotten at her elbow. The smell of burnt grounds hung in the recycled air. She shifted her weight and said nothing. Her eyes tracked the viewport the same way Darian's did. The ship appeared without warning. It did not decloak. It emerged from behind the gas giant, a massive slab of what looked like fused obsidian. Its surface caught no light. No engine glow, no running lights, no heat signature Tess could find. Bex muttered something under her breath, then she said it louder. Nothing that big should move that silent. A transmission arrived 11 minutes later. Tess translated it. The text scrolled across her screen in Galsign characters. The angular symbols clicked into meaning. Demand for identification, cargo manifest, crew biological profile. The emotional tones embedded in the text were cold and bored, not hostile, something worse, distracted. Maia sent the requested data. She added a personal message. She formed each Galsign character with care. "We come in peace, we seek mutual understanding." The transmission was received. 18 minutes of silence. Maia did not sit. She stood by the command console. The dark slab of the alien vessel hung in the void. The red starlight painted her hands. The scar above her left eyebrow itched. 18 minutes and 43 seconds. A second ship arrived. This one was smaller and faster. A wedge of the same dark material. Edges that blurred at the corners. It did not slow as it approached the gas giant. It descended toward the largest moon, a gray rock with a thin methane atmosphere. It landed in a plume of dust Tess tracked through the sensors. A shuttle detached from the second ship's underbelly. It moved toward the Dauntless. Tess looked up from her console. They did not request approach clearance. They did not signal intent. Maia felt something shift in her chest. The careful ceremonies she had rehearsed, the protocols she had polished, they meant nothing here. The aliens had not come to welcome humanity. They had come to inspect it. "Bex," she said, "keep the drive charged. Do not arm any weapons." Bex's eyes narrowed. "We don't have any weapons." "I know, keep them guessing." Maia kept her voice flat. The shuttle made contact with the Dauntless's hull. The impact traveled up through Maia's boots and into her spine. A hard clang, metal against metal. The ship shuddered once and then held steady. Darian moved to stand beside her. His hand trembled against his thigh. He said nothing. He did not need to. Tess tapped at her console. "The shuttle has docked at the main airlock. They are cycling the pressure now." Her voice was steady. Her fingers were shaking. Maia walked toward the airlock. She did not wait for permission. This was her ship, the first human vessel to cross the void between stars. She would meet them on her feet. The airlock door opened. A being stepped through, taller than she expected. Segmented gray chitin, jointed and smooth. 7 limb arms moved in a constant slow wave. Its face was layered plates that shifted and clicked as it turned toward her. No mouth, no eyes she could identify, but it was looking at her. The voice emerged from its thoracic cavity. a low vibration that felt like a pressure change in the room, a weight against her ears and her chest. "You will be quiet now, we will look." Maia opened her hands, palms up, the first protocol. The being did not acknowledge it. It stepped past her and into the corridor. The limb arms moved in that slow wave. They brushed the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. It was reading the ship, reading the space, reading them. Maia followed. Her mouth was dry. Her heart was a steady drum against her ribs. She had practiced for 43 years. She had memorized every protocol. She believed the first contact would be a meeting of equals. The being stopped at the engineering bay door. It turned its face toward her. The plates shifted. "You are afraid," it said. Maia said nothing. The plates shifted again, a motion that might have been amusement or disgust. She could not read it. She had no primer for this. The being raised one limb. It pointed at the failing display panel in the corner of the bridge. The shorted wiring, Bex had been too busy to fix it. The dead pixel flickered in the red starlight. "That will be repaired," a command, not a question. Maia looked at the flickering panel, then she looked at the being. She did not answer. The being stood motionless. Its 7 limbs hung at rest, the silence stretched. Maia understood that she had already lost the first exchange. She did not know yet what that loss would cost. The conference room was too small for 7 limbs. Morty knew this within 3 heartbeats of entering. The humans had built for their own proportions, a table reaching only to his mid-torso, chairs that would splinter under his weight. He folded 2 of his lower arms against his carapace and stood. The lights buzzed overhead. They were too bright for his optical membranes, but he did not close them. He was here to observe. He did not use his eyes. The low-level psionic scan spread from his thoracic cavity like ripples in still water. It touched each human in turn. Maia Venn radiated a controlled surface. Calm, alert. Beneath she was a storm of chemical signals. Adrenaline, cortisol, the sharp tang of fear. Normal. All first-contact prey species showed fear. Normal and predictable. There was something else. A pattern beneath the fear did not resolve. It moved when he pushed against it. Layered. Defensive. He tried to read its shape and found only static at the edges. Morton filed the observation for later analysis. He adjusted his optical membranes to full dilation and studied the room instead. Threx stood at his shoulder. The larger Thoughteater did not bother with subtlety. His carapace plates were flared. His posture broadcast threat in every known gestural language across 6 sectors. The humans could not read it. They could feel it. Darian Wren had shifted his weight forward. His hands were open and low, ready. Threx spoke first. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated through the deck plates. "We will search the vessel." Maia Venn did not flinch. She pressed her thumb against her lower lip for half a second. Then she shook her head. "That is not going to happen." Threx stepped forward. The movement was fast for his size. One long stride brought him within arm's reach of the human female. His front limbs rose. Darian Wren moved between them. He did not draw a weapon. He did not speak. He simply occupied the space. His body was a wall of dense muscle and old scar tissue. His left hand trembled slightly, but his eyes did not blink. He held Threx's gaze for 7 seconds. Morton watched the interaction with growing interest. Most newly contacted species complied with search requests. They had no frame of reference for refusal. They assumed the dominant species set the terms. These humans did not assume. They calculated. They chose. He raised a limb. Threx, stop. The larger Thoughteater did not retreat. He held position for another 3 heartbeats. Then he stepped back. His plates snapped flat against his body in a gesture of reluctant submission. Morty noted the delay. Threx was testing him, a problem for later. Tess Harlow spoke next. Her gal sign was clean, almost accentless. She had practiced. "Why did your species approach ours?" Morton considered the question. He could have offered the standard diplomatic answer. Mutual benefit, trade potential, cultural exchange. The humans would have accepted it. They wanted to believe in peaceful contact. Their transmissions had made that clear. He decided against the lie. The truth was simpler. "We detected your radio emissions. Your species argued about currency and territorial boundaries. The pattern was unusual among emerging technological civilizations. We found it interesting." Tess Harlow's face did not change. Her emotional signature spiked. Curiosity, recognition. She understood what he had not said. They had been eavesdropping for decades. They had listened to human wars and human negotiations. They found the spectacle compelling. She wrote something on her datapad. Morton watched her fingers move. The humans recorded everything. They were building a file on him. He was building one on them. The symmetry was almost elegant. Threx grew bored. Morton felt the shift before he saw it. Threx's attention narrowed. His psionic focus sharpened to a point and aimed at Maia Venn. The larger Thoughteater was going to push, not a full attack, a nudge, a violation of mental boundaries, a demonstration of dominance. Morton did not intervene. Threx reached out. His psionic probe touched the surface of Maia Venn's mind. It encountered something that should not have been there. A barrier. Not organic, not trained, something chemical, something manufactured. The probe struck it and skidded sideways. Threx's concentration shattered. He recoiled. His optical membrane snapped shut. His front limbs curled inward. The movement was small, quick, almost invisible. Maia Venn did not react. She had no idea what had happened. She simply watched Threx with the same controlled attention she had shown since they entered. Morton observed. He filed the data. Small bipedal mammals with psionic dampeners. That was unusual. That was worth reporting to the syndicate. He kept his own emotional resonance flat. He gave nothing away. He made a request. I require a genetic sample, a small tissue donation for our records. Tess Harlow's head snapped up. Her face went pale. No. Maia Venn overruled her without looking away from Morton. It is a skin cell. It is harmless. She scraped her palm with her thumbnail and extended her hand. A thin layer of dead epithelial cells clung to her skin. Morton collected the sample with a sterile limb tip. He sealed it in a containment vessel and stored it in his thoracic cavity. He noted Tess Harlow's anger. A spike of heat lingered in the air long after the sample was secured. She did not trust him. She was right not to. He turned toward the airlock. The interview was complete. Threx followed without speaking. His carapace plates were flat. His gait was stiff. He was processing what he had found. He would not speak of it. He would remember. The shuttle detached from the Dauntless hull with a shudder. Morton felt it through his contact points. The large slabship powered its primary drive. It began the slow acceleration out of the system. Morton stood at the observation window. He watched the human vessel shrink against the stars. A primitive construction, welded steel, ceramic plating. A fusion core pulsed with the crude rhythm of a first-generation design. It should have been nothing. A relic. An artifact of a species that had barely left its gravity well. It had psionic dampeners. Morton considered the implications. The humans did not understand what they carried. They had not deployed the dampeners intentionally. They simply had them. A piece of technology they had acquired or developed without grasping its significance. That made them unpredictable. That made them something other than simple prey. He was not sure if that made them valuable or dangerous. He was not sure which answer he hoped for. The comm unit in his thoracic cavity pulsed, a priority signal from the syndicate. He opened the channel and received the transmission. Short, the words were direct. Bring the human delegation to the conclave, or we will take their vessel apart and study the wreckage. Morton closed the channel. He stood in the dark of the observation bay. The silence settled around him. The humans had layers he could not read. They had defenses they did not understand. Now they had a summons they could not refuse. He wondered how they would respond. His optics tracked back to the empty space where the Dauntless had been. The ship was still there. He knew that. The void between them felt suddenly larger. The weight of it pressed against his carapace like a question with no answer yet. The cold sting of disinfectant hit Tess's palm. She pressed the swab harder than necessary. The micro-incision was almost invisible, a thread-thin line across the meat of her hand, just below the thumb, clean and precise. She had not felt it happen. Tess pulled up the DNA scanner's log. The sample the Thoughteater had taken from her finger was logged as standard epithelial tissue. Skin cells, surface level, routine. The scanner had flagged something else. A secondary sample, deeper tissue, nerve endings. She checked the time stamp. It matched the moment Morton had touched her hand. The moment she had felt that brief pressure, that strange cold. Her stomach turned. She opened her palm again and held it under the light. The incision was sealed now, almost healed. A Thoughteater's touch could cut and close in the same motion. She had given them a skin sample. They had taken something else, something she could not get back. Tess pressed her palm flat against the cold metal of the lab table. She forced herself to breathe. Maia's voice came over the intercom, flat and tired, like a woman who had not slept in days. Harlow, report. Tess straightened, found they took nerve tissue, unauthorized, they micro-sampled me during the greeting. A long pause, then Maia's voice again, harder now. Full ship sweep, every surface they touched, every room they entered. Corda, you heard her, get the hull scanners running. Bex's voice crackled back through the intercom. Already on it, give me 20 minutes. Tess set the scanner to run a cross-reference on the nerve tissue. She watched the data stream past. Chemical markers, genetic sequences, nothing that told her what the Thoughteaters wanted with a piece of her nervous system. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Tess looked up at the ceiling panel. The hum had changed pitch, slightly, almost imperceptibly. She made a note. 17 minutes later, Bex's voice came back over the intercom. "Com, I found something." Maia answered, "Go." 3 micro-incisions on the hull, port side near the secondary airlock. The shuttle docked there. Samples are clean, precise, tiny. They took metal from us. They did not drill. They did not leave a mark you could see with the naked eye. Tess felt a cold line run down her spine. They had been thorough. The Thoughteaters had touched the ship, touched her, and taken pieces of both without asking. Maia's voice was quiet now, controlled, anything else. Bex paused. Tess heard her breathing, the faint crackle of the comms link. "Not yet, but I do not like this. I do not like how quiet they were." Tess turned back to her console. She pulled up the recorded transmission from the first contact. The Galsine primer she had studied for years was a dead language compared to what the Thoughteaters were actually speaking. She ran the emotional subsignature analysis for the 3rd time. The software flagged patterns she did not recognize. The aliens were not just speaking a dialect. They were hiding information in the gaps between words. The silence itself carried meaning, a pause of a specific length, a vibration just below the threshold of human hearing. Tess leaned closer to the screen. She isolated one of the gaps, amplified it, filtered out the background noise. Nothing, then something. A frequency shift, deliberate, intentional. They had been communicating in 2 channels at once. The audible speech was for the humans. The silent gaps were for each other. She sat back in her chair. Her hands were shaking. A knock at the door, Darian's voice, low and rough. "Tess, you in there?" She did not turn around. "I am." The door slid open. Darian stepped inside. He looked older than he had 3 days ago. The tremor in his left hand was worse. "Maia wants to go to the conclave." He said it like the word tasted bad. "I know. She cannot do this. She cannot walk into their territory with a ship full of holes they already mapped." Tess turned to face him. He stood in the doorway, one hand braced against the frame. His knuckles were white. "We do not have a choice, Darian. If we run, they follow. They find Earth." He shook his head. "We can make a blind jump, go deep, hide. They would find us. They already know what we are. They took pieces of us." Darian's jaw tightened. His eyes moved past her, scanning the lab, the screens, the specimen cases, the single light flickering overhead. "You trust her?" Tess hesitated. The question landed harder than she expected. "I trust that she is trying to keep us alive. That is enough." Darian held her gaze for a long moment. Then he stepped back into the corridor. The door slid shut behind him. Tess turned back to her console. She pulled up the tissue samples she had preserved from the alien shuttle, the ones she had taken during the brief window when the hatch was open. She ran a standard psionic residue scan, the same test they used on recovered Verdoxis artifacts. The result came back in seconds. Positive. She stared at the screen. The residue was faint, a whisper. A static charge clung to the sample like frost on glass. She ran it again, same result. She ran a deeper analysis. The signature had structure. It was not random, organized, layered, still active. It was listening. Tess pressed her thumb against her lower lip, the same gesture Maia used. She did not realize she was doing it until she tasted salt. She pulled up the comms panel, typed a single line to Maia's private terminal. "They left something on the ship." The reply came 30 seconds later, a single word, "Where?" "Do not know, not physical, psionic residue, active. It has been listening since the shuttle left." The pause stretched. Tess watched the cursor blink. Maia's voice came over the intercom, flat and controlled again. "Corda, cut the internal comms network. Reroute everything through a hardened line. Do it now." Bex did not ask why. She never did. 37 minutes later, the lights flickered and held. The bridge went dark for exactly 3 seconds. When they came back, the hum of the ship was different. Cleaner, quieter. Tess sat alone in her lab. She stared at the data on the screen, the psionic signature, the hidden frequencies, the nerve tissue the Thoughteaters had taken from her hand. She opened her personal log, typed a single line. They are not just studying our technology, they are studying our thoughts. She closed the log and sat in the silence. The lights hummed overhead. The air smelled of disinfectant and preserved tissue. She had felt the cold sting on her palm. She had seen the incision. She had watched the scanner flag the unauthorized sample. But she had not felt them take it. That was the part she could not stop thinking about. She had not felt a thing. The air hit Maia's face first, thick and warm and sweet, like overripe fruit left to rot in a sealed room. She stepped through the hatch and felt the weight of 100 silent presences pressing against her skin. The walls of the conclave station were not walls at all. They were tiers of observation perches stacked in concentric rings, each lined with a Thoughteater in their chitin bodies. They did not move. They did not speak. The only sound was the low hum of station systems vibrating through the deck plates. Tess walked beside her. Darian followed a step behind. Bex had stayed on the Dauntless. The only engineer Maia trusted to keep the drive charged. That had been the plan. Keep the drive charged, keep the bluff alive. The chamber opened into a circular floor. No furniture, no markings, just polished stone that reflected the amber light in oily swirls. Maia stopped at the center. The silence stretched past comfortable, past professional, past anything she had trained for. 1 minute. She counted the beats in her head, her thumb pressed against her lower lip. 2 minutes. The Thoughteaters did not blink. They had no eyes to blink with. Their faces were layered plates of gray chitin. They shifted in slow, rhythmic pulses, watching, processing, weighing. 3 minutes. Morton stepped forward from the first tier. His thoracic cavity vibrated. His voice filled the room like a pressure change. The Syndicate acknowledges the arrival of the human delegation. He paused. The human species presents a potential resource. Their biological resilience exceeds baseline projections. Their metabolic versatility suggests applications in chemical synthesis. Their emotional range is unusually broad and stable. The delegates stirred. Maia heard the scrape of chitin against stone. Some plates on their faces shifted forward, interest. Some vibrated at a slightly different frequency, hunger. She kept her breathing steady. Morton continued. The human immune system displays extraordinary plasticity. They heal faster than any species of equivalent mass. Their cardiovascular network adapts to extreme acceleration within minutes. These traits have clear commercial value. A delegate from the third tier spoke. Her voice was high and thin. Acquisition Division wishes to begin sampling protocols immediately. Another voice. Biological materials only, no structural damage. We want them intact for replication. Maia felt Tess tense beside her. She put a hand out, small gesture, stay still. Threx rose from the second tier. He was larger than the others. Scars ran across his carapace in pale lines. One limb arm was missing at the second joint. He did not speak at first. He let his presence fill the space. Then he let his voice roll out. The humans are dangerous. The room went quiet. Threx stepped down onto the circular floor. He moved close to Maia, close enough that she could smell him sharp and mineral like rust and ozone. They lie, they hide, they carry psionic dampeners built into their biology. These are not natural, they are manufactured. The humans have been preparing for contact. They do not come as supplicants, they come as infiltrators. The delegates began to hum. A low, subsonic vibration Maia felt in her chest. She did not know what it meant. She saw Morton's plates tighten. Threx turned to face the tiers. I demand a vote for termination. The human presence is an unacceptable risk to Syndicate security. Silence. Maia stepped forward. She raised her hands and signed in Gal sign. The universal gesture language Tess had taught her during the long years of transit. Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately, every signal clean and precise. Why did you send a greeting if you only wanted to classify us? The vibration stopped. She held the position, her hands steady, her face calm. The question hung in the amber light like a physical thing. Morton's plates shifted. He had no mouth to open, no breath to draw. His hesitation was visible. The truth was the Syndicate had never agreed on what to do with humanity. They had sent the greeting out of curiosity, a probe, a test. They had never expected a response. He could not say that. Vess moved before he could find words. She dropped from the highest tier and landed without sound. Her body was thin, fast. Her vocal hum was sharp and cutting. The humans know they are being observed. They removed the sensor from their hull. They are not compliant. They are hostile. The room fragmented. Voices rose from every tier. Some wanted trade, some wanted study, some wanted destruction. The subsonic hum became a discordant roar. Maia stood at the center and watched them argue. The Thoughteaters did not move their bodies when they spoke. They simply vibrated. The air itself became a chaos of competing frequencies. She looked at Mortain. He was watching her. His plates had not relaxed. His limb arms were still. She looked at Threx. He watched her too. His missing limb arm twitched, a phantom movement. She looked at Darien. His left hand trembled against his thigh, the old decompression injury. He was scared. He was ready. She looked at Tess. Tess was humming. A fragment of melody Maia did not recognize. Her eyes tracked every movement in the room. The argument continued. A delegate from the 5th tier demanded immediate termination. Another from the 1st tier demanded a trade agreement. A third from the 7th tier suggested partial harvesting, take the immune system, leave the rest alive for study. Maia stepped forward again. She raised her hands. The room went quiet. She signed slowly. Humanity will share its biological secrets, our adaptive immune system, our regenerative capabilities, our emotional complexity. We will provide full access to our genetic architecture and metabolic pathways. In exchange, the Syndicate will provide safe passage for our delegation and technology transfer agreements. She lowered her hands. Silence. The low hum began again, softer, curious. Mortain felt it first. The humans were lying. He knew it with a certainty that had nothing to do with psionic reading. He could not sense their emotions. He could not read their intent. The dampeners were too clean, too complete. But he knew. The offer was too generous. The terms were too simple. The humans were hiding something. He could not prove it. The delegates began to vote. One by one, they raised a limb arm, termination. One by one, they lowered it, trade. The count was even. Mortain raised his own limb arm. He voted against termination. The count held. The conclave recessed for deliberation. The delegates withdrew to their perches. The humans were led from the circular floor and down a corridor of darkened stone. The air grew cooler. The sweet rot smell faded. They stopped at a door. It slid open. Maia stepped inside. The room was small, a single chair, a single light. The walls were smooth and seamless. She turned to look at the door. It had no handle on her side. The holding room had no corners. Darien ran his palm along the wall. He felt the smooth warmth of the material. It matched his body temperature exactly, like the room was alive and breathing against his skin. He pressed his fingers into the surface. No give, no seam. He dropped to his knees and tested the floor panels the same way, fused, every joint sealed into a single cast piece. No visible lock, no handle, no mechanism. Just a box. Tess sat on the metal bench with her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes tracked the ceiling. She was humming something, a fragment of an old melody, barely audible over the low electrical buzz of the lighting. The sound made Darien's teeth ache. He finished mapping the room with his hands. 4 walls, 1 door, 1 bench, no shadows anywhere. The light came from the ceiling and hit everything evenly. Tess whispered without looking at him, "They are listening." Darien straightened. He met her eyes. She tapped her temple twice. "Psionic surface thoughts, they are reading us right now." He nodded slowly. Then he sat down on the floor and closed his eyes. He thought about the ocean. He built the image piece by piece. The smell of salt and rotting kelp. The gray sky pressing down on gray water. The cold, that deep, bone-aching cold that got into your joints and stayed there. He remembered the deck of a salvage rig, the metal slick with spray, the horizon tilting as a wave hit broadside. He filled his mind with water, deep water, the kind that crushed light out of existence below 50 meters. The pressure built in his memory. He held it there. Tess watched him. She did not understand. She stopped humming. Darien kept thinking about the cold. He thought about the hull groaning, the sound a ship makes when the metal is reaching its limit, a sound that means you have seconds to decide, a sound that means someone is going to die if you choose wrong. He held that thought. He wrapped it in salt and darkness and pressure. Let them listen to that. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. Time had no texture in the box. Bex Corda stood beneath the ceiling panel. Her fingernail was pressed against a hairline crack, so thin it looked like a shadow. But it was real. She had found it by touch. She worked the crack open one scraping pass at a time. The sound was slow, steady, methodical. Darien kept his eyes closed. He kept the ocean in his mind. His attention followed the sound of Bex's nail. He counted the scrapes. 142 before the crack became wide enough for her fingertip. The door opened. Vess stood in the frame. Her thin body swayed slightly. Her high-pitched vocal hum filled the room. She tilted her head at Bex, who had frozen with her hand above the ceiling. Vess said nothing. She simply looked at them. Then she stepped inside. The door closed behind her. No click, no seal, it just became a wall again. Vess spoke, her voice vibrated in Darien's chest. The Syndicate will release you. Full freedom of movement within the station. Unrestricted return to your vessel. Tess straightened. Darien opened his eyes. Vess tilted her head the other way. In exchange, you submit to complete biological assessment, tissue samples, live specimen extraction, long-term observation, a standard protocol for unclassified species. Darien stood up slowly. He did not answer. Vess waited. The silence stretched. Your alternative is indefinite detention. Your vessel will be boarded and studied regardless. This offer is generous. It expires. Darien looked at her. He thought about the wreck, the hull groaning, the water rising. We will escape, he said. Vess made a sound. It might have been amusement. It might have been something else. Her psionic presence pressed against his mind like a hand testing a locked door. She found the ocean. She found the cold. She found the memory of a shipwreck. The metal screaming, the water black and hungry, the bodies floating in their suits with empty visors. She pulled back. Her limbs twitched. Her vocal hum dropped to a lower register. She stared at him. The room was very quiet. Bex's hand moved. One fingernail hooked behind the ceiling panel and pulled. Wires came free in a bundle. Sparks sprayed. The lights flickered once, twice, and held. The door clicked. Darien moved. He crossed the room in 3 steps and put his shoulder against the panel. It slid open. The corridor beyond was empty and gray and lit with the same shadowless light. He did not look back. Tess Bex move. They moved. The corridor stretched in both directions. No landmarks, no signs, just more smooth walls and even light. A Thoughteater guard appeared at the far end. 7 limbs, carapace scarred. It saw them and opened its thoracic cavity to call out. Darien hit it. He hit it in the soft joint where the left arm met the torso. The guard folded. Its legs buckled. It hit the deck with a wet crunch and did not rise. Darien kept running. The corridor branched. He chose left, then right, then straight into a wider passage lined with alcoves and sealed doors. Behind him, Tess's breathing was ragged. Bex said nothing, she just followed. They reached an airlock. Darien grabbed the manual release. The mechanism groaned. The inner door cracked open. He pulled it wide and stepped through. Beyond it was a hangar. Ships sat in rows. Small craft with curved hulls and unfamiliar markings. Maintenance gantries, fuel lines. The air smelled of ozone and cold metal. There, in the 3rd row from the left, was a ship he recognized. It was the Dauntless's shuttle. It was not supposed to be here. Darien stopped. Tess stopped beside him. Bex let out a low breath. The shuttle sat on the deck like a piece of home dropped into a foreign room. Its hull was dented. Its landing struts were chalked. The hatch was closed. Darien did not know how long it had been here. He did not know who had brought it. But he knew one thing. The certainty settled cold in his chest. If the shuttle was here, the Thoughteaters had already been inside the Dauntless. The air in the conclave chamber tasted like a coin left on the tongue. Maia learned that minutes after they brought her back. Dry, metallic, the tang of recycled atmosphere and alien pheromones she could not identify. Threx stood at the center of the tiered room. His voice was a low thrum that vibrated through the deck plates and up through her boots. The humans escaped their holding room, he announced to the assembly. They assaulted an unarmed acquisition specialist. They demonstrate violence as a first response. They cannot be controlled. The delegates shifted on their perches. 7 rows of segmented bodies. 7 rows of eyeless faces that somehow still watched her. Morton stood apart from the others. His limb arms were folded. His thoracic cavity pulsed with a rhythm she had learned to read as anxiety. Threx continued. The Syndicate must act before these creatures spread their influence to other species. They must be classified as a threat. They must be terminated. The word landed like a door slamming shut. Maia pressed her thumb against her lower lip. She counted her heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. Then she stepped forward. She did not deny the escape. She did not apologize. She signed in gal sign, her hands moving with deliberate precision. Thank you for the hospitality, honored delegates. The escape was a planned exercise, a test of syndicate security protocols. The chamber went still. No translation needed. Gal sign was universal. The meaning hung in the air like a challenge. Threx turned his head toward her. His carapace plates rasped against each other. A test, she continued, signing. We wish to evaluate your response procedures before we committed to a full exchange of personnel and data. Your security performed adequately. We are satisfied. She was aware of every breath, aware of the slight tremor in her left hand she could not quite suppress, aware of Mortin watching her with that terrible attention. A delegate from the third tier signed a question. Why was this testing not disclosed? Maia met the question with flat calm. A test is not valid if the subject knows it is being evaluated. You understand this concept. You observe, you classify, you do not announce yourselves. The truth cut close enough to draw blood. She saw it land. A murmur spread through the perches, fragmented debate, voices rising and falling. Some delegates signed rapidly. Others vibrated their carapaces in what she guessed was amusement or irritation. Threx slammed his limb arm against the floor. The metal cracked. A hairline fracture spread from the impact point, branching like a frozen lightning strike. She wanted this, he thrummed. She planned this from the beginning. Mortin spoke for the first time. His voice was lower than usual. The accusation rests on assumption, not evidence. Threx rounded on him. You defend them. I observe them. There is a difference. Maia kept her face still. She watched Mortin. She watched the way his plates shifted when he spoke. She watched the tiny hesitation in his words that told her he saw through her. He knew she was lying. He did not expose her. She filed that information away and offered her proposal. I will remain on the Conclave station as a hostage. My crew will return to Earth with syndicate observers. We will transmit full human medical data and negotiate trade rights. In exchange, you will not terminate us. Threx vibrated with fury. You offer us what we already took from your vessel. Maia signed a single word, consent. The silence stretched. A delegate from the highest perch initiated a vote. Maia did not breathe. 6 voices in favor, 5 against. Threx struck the floor again. The crack widened. Mortin approached her when the chamber dissolved into post-vote discussion. His 7 limbs moved with deliberate slowness. His face plates arranged themselves into an expression she could not read. What are you planning? He asked. She looked at him. She let her surface thoughts go smooth and empty. She said nothing. Mortin stood very still. His psionic sense pressed against her mind like a hand against a wall. He found nothing. No fear, no hope, no plan, only a manufactured calm that was more terrifying than any threat. He felt the weight of her silence. She could see it in the way his plates drew tight, in the slow rhythm of his thoracic pulse. He understood that he had been searching the wrong frequency since the first transmission. Every offer, every expression of fear or hope, every carefully displayed emotion. All of it was a performance. He did not know what she was hiding. He knew it was bigger than the syndicate had anticipated. Guards escorted her to a new room. This one had a window. She pressed her palm against the cold glass. The stars were sharp and motionless. The Dauntless was a dark speck against the curve of the gas giant far below. She was alone. The transmission arrived 40 minutes later. The speaker crackled. Bex Corda's voice came through calm and flat. We have the ship. We are leaving. Maia touched the glass. The Dauntless began to move. Its drive signature shifted from standby to ignition. The ship turned away from the Conclave station and accelerated toward the jump point. Maia watched her home grow smaller. Bex's voice returned. We are going to broadcast everything, every recording, every translation, every piece of data we pulled from their network. The galaxy is going to know what the Thoughteater Syndicate does to the species it classifies. Maia closed her eyes. Her ship was going home without her. She knew that was exactly how it had to be. The cold glass against her fingertips. She had worn a path onto the window with her palm over 7 days. The stars did not move. The station's life support hummed a low and constant note, a sound she had learned to silence in her awareness. She smelled her own skin now, stale, tired, human. She did not move the furniture. She had memorized the pattern of the ceiling lights, a grid of 63 panels with 2 flickering in the far corner. The screen flickered to life without warning. Tess's face appeared, compressed and grainy, passed through syndicate channels by accident or design. Her eyes were hollow and bright at the same time. She looked thinner. She looked like someone who had stopped sleeping. "We did it," Tess said, her voice cracked on the second word. "The drive is ready." The message was 6 seconds long. It repeated. Maia watched it 3 times. She did not react. Her face stayed flat, her breathing even, her hands still pressed to the glass. She watched it a 3rd time, and then she reached out and deleted the file. The screen went dark. The hum of the station filled the silence. She called for Mortin. He arrived in less than a minute. That was new. He used to make her wait. His chitin plates moved against each other as he entered, a sound like dry leaves sliding across stone. He did not sit. His 7 limb arms twitched and settled. His faceplates shifted in a pattern she had learned to read as agitation. "The syndicate is fracturing," he said. His voice emerged from his thoracic cavity, a low vibration that pressed against her chest. "Threx is building support for a military strike against Earth. The vote will happen in 3 days." Maia turned from the window. She looked at him directly. She had learned to hold his eyeless gaze. She had learned to let him scan her and find nothing but flat surface. "I have something to tell you," she said. Mortin tilted his head. The plates of his face rearranged into a shape she did not recognize. A question, she thought, or suspicion. "We have been lying since the first radio signal. The distortion drive is not a prototype. It is a weapon. Every jump creates a small localized rupture in space-time. The syndicate's homeworld is within range." Mortin did not move. His thoracic cavity hummed at a lower pitch. He reached into her mind. She felt the pressure, the familiar sensation of something cold sliding behind her eyes. She let him find nothing. She let him find the smooth wall she had built over 7 days of staring at stars and memorizing lights. His scan pressed deeper. It found the same wall. It found the same flat surface. It found no fear, no doubt, no crack. He withdrew. "You are telling the truth," he said, the plates of his face tightened. "But you are lying, both at the same time. I cannot separate them." Maia said nothing. The humans have learned to believe their own lies. It was not a question. It was a discovery. She let him have that. It was the closest thing to an answer she could give. "The strategy is simple. The message I received was a confirmation. The Dauntless reached Earth. The rupture drives are being fitted to every ship in the human fleet. If the Syndicate attacks, humanity will respond with targeted jumps that destabilize Syndicate space. The damage will be permanent." She paused. She let the words settle. She watched his faceplates move through patterns she had never seen before. Fear, she thought, or something like it. Something his species felt when threat exceeded threshold. "Why are you telling me this?" Mortin said. His voice was lower now. The vibration in his chest had dropped to a frequency she felt in her teeth. "Because you need to choose. You can destroy us and lose your homeworld, or you can leave us alone and pretend this conversation never happened." Mortin stood still. His limb arms stopped moving. His faceplates locked into a single rigid shape. The low hum of his body was the only sound in the room. He had no mouth. He had no eyes. She could feel the weight of his attention, the full pressure of a mind that had never encountered a species that lied as a default tactic. A species that had evolved deception not as a tool but as a survival strategy. A species that had lied to itself first, generation after generation, until the lie became the truth. The Syndicate had no counter for that. They never needed one. "I will attend the vote," Mortin said. His voice was barely audible. He turned. His 7 limb arms folded against his body. He walked to the door. He did not look back. The door closed. Maia pressed her palm against the cold glass again. The station hummed. The stars did not move. She looked at the distant shape of the Dauntless, small and dark against the void, and she thought about the weight of a lie so old it had become bone. Mortin walked through the conclave chamber. The stacked observation perches were full. The delegates lined the walls, their chitin plates clicking and shifting in patterns of argument and dissent. Threx stood at the center of the room. His scarred carapace caught the amber light. His missing limb arm was a void in his silhouette. The vote on military action began. The delegates spoke in fragments, in overlapping frequencies, in the silent gaps between words. The room was a storm of noise and pressure and intention. Morton walked to the center of the chamber. He stood next to Threx. The larger Thoughteater turned to face him, his presence carrying the weight of certainty and rage. Morton looked at the delegates. He opened his mouth. Termination is not the answer. The humans pose a greater threat than we understood, not because of their weapons, but because of their ability to manufacture truth. They have weaponized the lie. We cannot defeat what we cannot read. His voice carried through the chamber. The delegates fell silent. Threx's carapace flared in fury, but Morton held his ground. I move for a treaty, non-interference. We leave their space, they leave ours. The vote is now. The delegates raised their limbs, one by one. The count came in, 23 for termination, 26 for treaty. Threx struck the floor. The crack he had made earlier split wider, a fracture running across the entire chamber. Morton did not look at him. He turned and walked out of the conclave, his steps steady on the cracked stone. He found Maia still at the window. The stars had not moved. Her hand was still pressed against the glass. "The treaty is ratified," he said. "You will leave, we will not follow." Maia did not turn. She looked at the Dauntless, now just a point of light among many. "Thank you," she said. Morton stood behind her. His psionic sense brushed her mind one last time. He found the same smooth wall, the same manufactured calm. But now he knew what was behind it. He left her alone in the room with the window. Maia watched the stars. She thought about Earth. She thought about the lies she had told and the truths she had hidden. She thought about the message Tess had sent, the drive ready, the fleet arming, the galaxy about to learn what humanity could do. She pressed her palm flat against the cold glass. And she smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a species that had learned to survive by being the thing no one expected. The door opened behind her. A guard escorted her to the shuttle bay. The Dauntless's shuttle waited, its hatch open. She climbed inside. The engines ignited. The station fell away. Ahead, the void stretched dark and infinite. Behind her, the Thoughteater Syndicate was already rewriting its records, adding a new classification for the species that had beaten them at their own game. Humanity, a species that could lie so well, it even fooled itself. Maia settled into the pilot's seat and set a course for the jump point. She had a galaxy to warn,